Hi, this is Happy and this is a live grid tutorial about transitions. There are four main features in the live grid and transitions is one of them. Let's head over to the Randomization software and I have a color grid here which I generated. Now by default we have all these sections here which correspond to the four main features. In this tutorial we're only going to talk about transitions, which is the section here. First of all, just so you know what we're talking about, when you make a change, then there is a transition on stage. Now, this transition means that there's no sweep, but you can choose other built-in transitions, and then you will get a sweep from left to right, right to left, or a random one. We'll go over it later. So let's start by customizing this section and leaving only the transition related sections. So you go to the configuration of this instance, go to layout, and we can turn off the group on off, hide, subgrouping, which we won't be using this tutorial, and let's keep the whole buttons. And we don't need any scenes. Okay. Now, before we start looking at transitions, it is important that you define an all group. When you open the configuration for this instance, and you have here all group, and right now it's group number 10. The all group, if you look at this small explanation, you can read it later. The all group needs to include all the fixtures in the groups here, but in one big selection grid that has all the fixtures in a natural order, like a two-dimensional order, and they should be in the order of left to right and top to bottom according to the stage. You can see here the selection grid for the all group, and you can see that the fixtures are positioned from left to right and top to bottom. I can just mention here that it is okay if the all group includes more fixtures than you have configured in the grid. So if you have a big all group with all the fixtures on your stage and you have a color group which uses only a part of your groups, maybe not all of them, then it's okay. So it doesn't matter, the all group can include more fixtures than there are in these groups, but it must include at least these fixtures that are in these groups. So now we have these quick keys here, quick transitions, that where you can change a transition quickly. Each transition here has an matrix behind it that you can edit on the fly. And at the top we have the button which for one thing it opens the transition editor, but it also shows you the selected transition. Okay, you see it changing here. It also shows you if you're using the executor time or if that transition will have a fixed time, you will see it here. Okay, so let's open the transition editor. But first notice that we have 6 groups here and there are 6 transition buttons. When you open the transition editor, then you can see that we have here actually 10 transitions that you can quickly switch between them. Each has its own matrix, and the ones that you see here are the first 6 in this case. So these are the first 6 transitions here. If you would have less groups, then you will see less transition buttons. If you have more groups, you can see maybe up to 10. So you just need to know that. So you put the transitions that you usually use the first ones, and keep the rest for special transitions. Okay, now let's go over this dialog, which has a lot of things in it. Let's start here. So these are the 10 transitions you can choose from. Now, clicking on this column, for example, center in, if I click it, it will choose the center in transition and close the dialog. So this is for quickly choosing say you want the transition number 10, which doesn't appear here, so you can open the dialog, choose transition 10, and the dialog closes automatically, so it's for quick access when you are during a show. But you can select with these pencils when you just want to edit the transition, so the dialog doesn't close. So let's start with the left to right transition and start by changing it. Before we do that, these icons here, the matrix icons, when you click on them, you open the matrix for that specific transition. So let's open this matrix. So it opened it on the display number 2. I want it like this because I'm gonna use it further down this video. So we went over all this section. Now we have the transition editor, which is for the selected transition. So right now we have the left to right. We can rename it. Let's say we have 2 of them. And there's auto appearance. So when you change, let's look here. When you change the direction, then there's an automatic appearance that is assigned to this transition. If it's towards inside or inside out or a random. So these are the auto appearances. If you turn it off, then when you change the direction, then the appearance doesn't change. So you can assign a custom appearance. You do it by assigning it to the matrix itself. But I think most of you can use the auto-generated appearances. Further down we have here the direction selection. We just showed it, so there's 6 options for the x-axis and 6 for the y-axis. Z-axis is not supported yet, but the whole idea of this transition editor is to quickly edit and create the most popular or useful or simple transitions, because it's endless once you start really playing around with the metric. But this should be enough. Further down we have the timing section, which has 2 timing modes, which are only display modes. The default is using the duration, which is a mode of controlling delay and fade, which I think is better suitable and more easy to understand and more consistent to create transitions with different fade or timing controls. We'll see that later. You can always switch to the fade delay, which shows you simple delay and fade. We're using executor time here, so let's just disengage that, and then you have a simple fade time and delay time. So I'll start this tutorial by using the duration timing mode. Just in one sentence, when you have a delay and a fade, then the total duration is the sum of those 2. So sometimes I find it easier to think of a transition as a total duration, which is the sum of the delay and fade, and the fade as the percentage from the delay. So if it's 100%, then the fade is the same as the delay. If it's none or 0, then there is no fade and the colors just snap. Okay, so we showed the executor time actually. When you switch executor time, then you see here in the controls, you can't control the duration, it's decided by the executor time, and this affects some matrix calculations, and it also sets use executor time in the grids sequence. Okay, there's another part here. When you choose random, then you'll see this part here, this section, and random is just shuffling. Okay, I showed it before. So you can just click shuffle to get a different kind of randomization. Okay, and as you know, shuffle is a random order of the fixtures, but every time you make a transition, it will be in the same order. And this depends on the number you have here, the seed. So when you press shuffle, you change the seed, so they will be in different order. Now this auto shuffle is a feature I added that every time you change a color or you make a transition, it will change the shuffle seed, so it will really be random every time you make a transition, and they won't look the same all the time. Now, before we go into the last section of this tutorial, which is going to go deep into the timing options here, so let's just make a quick example or demonstration. So let's say we want left to right to be a fixed delay and fade. Okay, let's check it out. And instead of left to right, let's keep it right to left, but with executor time and a very soft fade, or maybe 100% is quite soft. Okay, so now you have executor time, so I can change the executor time. Let's make it slower, and the fade is quite soft. And when you change here, you got a 2-second, and let's make it with no fade, so it will be 1 second. We'll discuss it later. Sorry. So you have a 1 fade snappy sweep, and you have an executor time which has a soft fade. And let's see this one. Okay, let's say that we also want this to be fixed amount of half a second and no fade. So you got this one, half a second. This is executor time. This is 1 second. Okay, so this is how you prepare a few transitions for your show, and during the show you can still change these transitions on the fly. Okay, now let's go deeper into timing options. There are 3 ways to control time. You can use an executor time, you can use fixed time, and you can also set a rate master to the grid sequence and control time with a rate master. So to set a rate master, you would click the ProPlugins logo to get to the config layout, and then here you have the actual sequence of the grid, and if you edit its settings, then you can assign rate master. So let's assign speed 1. Now let's see, we have okay, this is speedmaster 1, and you can see the sweeps are faster. Okay, so now we got to the section where we look at the metric and we explain how the plugin calculates the values that should be applied to it. So we took this left to right transition. I clicked here to open the metric, and you can see it on the screen. And we have duration 1 and fade 100%, which means that the fade will be the same as the delay. The duration is always the sum of delay and fade, so both of them are half a second. And you can see it here in the metric. We are not using the executor time, so this will be the actual time as long as your rate master, if you assigned it, is at 60 bpm. Now when you change the fade, you can see that the fade amount in the metric is going down and the delay time is going up, so in order to preserve the duration of 1 second. Okay, of course, if you use fade delay, then you will see it that we don't preserve a duration of 1 second, and then you can have like transitions where you are choosing like 6 seconds and 1 second fade, and actually your duration is 7, but you don't see it, so you have to keep it in mind if it's important for you. Now, let's see it with executor time. So when you enable the executor time, you don't control the delay anymore. This is controlled by the executor time. So in the metric, you can see that the delay is set from 0 to 1. And this is not really 1 because executor time will be used. But this is kind of a normalized value. So when we set the fade amount, let's say for 60%, it will set the fade to 0.6. And what's important here, because all of this is normalized by the executor time, the important thing is the ratio between the fade and the delay. So if it's 0.6 and 1, then we get 60% fade factor. Or 200 will have fade of 2 and delay of 1. You can see that it's the same if you use the duration. In this case, when using executor time, because the delay is always set to 1, then it's actually the same. Okay, now I want to show you two-dimensional transitions. And before I engage it, let's set fade to none, or 0. You can see it here in the matrix. And make two-dimensional transitions. So now we have still 0 fade, both in x and y axis, but delay is set to 0 to half a second and 0 to half a second. Let's make it 2 seconds, so just it will be easier to explain. So now we got delay of 0 to 1, both x and y. Now the duration is 2, because the x and y axes are also summed up. Okay, let's consider the wall fixtures here. So the selection grid would look something like this. And so if we look at the distribution of delays along this matrix, actually this table shows 11 fixtures, not 10, so we'll have the numbers nice and round. And you can see that the delay on the x-axis is from 0 to 1. And because they are additive, then for every y value that we increase, then we'll have another, in this case, 0.1 added to the values. So you take this row and you add the 0.1, the second row will be added 0.2, and so forth. And then you will have that the last fixture will have a total delay of 2 seconds, which is the total duration of this transition. And you can see these diagonals here that have the same delay values, and that's why you will see it actually on stage as if a wave is moving from top left to the bottom right corner. Let's see this transition in action. So let's choose the LED back, and you can see the diagonal transition. Okay, let's look for a second at how the metric changes when you change direction. So when you have no sweep, then you'll have no fade and no delay, sorry, and the fade is fixed, of course, at 1 second. So your transitions will work with the rate master. Now, when you add a direction, say left to right, then you can see that delays from 0 to 1. If you have a right to left, then it will be from 1 to 0. And if you're doing from outside to the inside, then you have this wings 2. And if it's other way around, then it's from, x1 to 0. When you change to random, then it turns on the shuffle. You can't see it right now in the matrix. And it also turned off the wings. Now, maybe it's a good time to say that whenever the plugin does something that which is a default of the plugin and you would like to make a different choice. So for example, if we want to use the shuffle but also to use wings too, then you can always open the matrix and change it manually, add these wings, and it will stay that way until you make a change. Okay, so last thing, if you're still here, that I forgot to show you in the beginning of the video is actually that you don't have to see all these buttons. Sometimes you don't need them or you want to save space. So you can always go to the layout options here, and in transition buttons, instead of choosing show or hide, you can choose compact. And this will leave you with only the button that shows you the selected transition. Okay, the transition still works. And you can open the editor and choose a different transition, but you don't have all these buttons. So if you're trying to save space in your view, so you can use the compact mode. There's a couple more things I want to show you. Sometimes you will see these values here in brackets, and these are custom values. So here, if you have like 4 seconds delay and 1 second fade, and you switch to duration, then the ratio here is actually 25%, and the duration is 5. And you can see here that 5 is, well, currently not in the default timing options, and 25% is also not. So you'll see 25% in brackets and 5 seconds in brackets. This means that these are custom. You see them, and once you choose some option from the built-in, or it will be configurable in the future, when you choose from the standard options, then the custom options will disappear. Okay, also here. You might also see these custom values if you go into the matrix and you change the actual values there. Then the second time that you will open the transition editor, you might have custom values here according to the values that you set in the matrix directly. Now, last thing that you should be aware of is an MA bug that is noticeable with the live grid when using sweeps. Okay, let's see if we can see it. So we have this long transition, and I'm going to start a new transition before the previous one ends. Okay, so let's see it. Red, white. Now you saw this little jump here, that the first fixture actually jumped from red to white. Let's do it again. So let's wait for it, for the blue one. And I'm going to do red and white, but I'm going to start white before the red is finished. So red, white. There was a small jump here. And this is because the live grid is creating a queue. Every time you choose a color, a new queue is created. Now there is an MA bug that when a queue is created in a sequence, then it interrupts an ongoing fade from two other queues. So let's say that we're transitioning from this queue to this queue, and during this transition, the plugin creates a new queue, then it interrupts this transition. The queue is loading. You can see here not now, but you would see here the queue is loading, or it's X fading, and this is a bug. And until they fix it, there is nothing I can do right now. So it's really subtle in these cases. So I hope it's not noticeable, but you should be aware of it. If you make a lot of transitions, okay, actually, it actually sometimes it depends on the values. It could be actually really not noticeable. In other cases, it can be noticeable. So just be aware of it, and I hope that MA will fix it in the next version. Okay, now we finished with the transition editor, but I still want to show you how this transition and the matrix are all combined and how does the grid work, how does it apply it to the stage. Okay, now if we open the sequence of this grid, we can see the cues that it generates. and we choose the last queue or any queue, you can see that they are all recipe queues, and we have a selection and values, and the matrix is the currently selected matrix. So if this matrix, let's see, it's 8312, so the currently selected transition is this one. Let's open the matrix. You can see it's 8312. So the currently selected transition is the one that is used in every queue that is created. Okay, so let's create a blue queue, and we can see here, okay, the blue one, and it is using the matrix from the selected transition. Now, the values is of course a preset which is created whenever you select a color, and this preset also includes the subgrouping and all the colors for all the groups, including subgrouping. And this selection is something which is important for transitions, and which is actually the reason why the grid works the way it works with a single sequence. So the matrix is applied on the selection. Now the selection is a combination group. You can see here it has a very long name because it includes the handles of all the groups that are included in the transition. Okay, so if now I make the spots white, then a transition will be applied only on the spots. Okay, now because you can use the hold button and make a selection that includes more than one group, then now a single transition will occur on all these groups. So there is actually a combination group that includes all these all the possible combinations, and the plugin will fire a new queue that has that special group for these three groups. Okay, so let's we had a timeout. Let's do it again. Okay, so only these groups are having the transition, and you can see here that our last queue, it's a special group which has three handles in it. Okay, it has three groups in it, and this is important. So the values in the matrix, the timing values, will be spread only on the groups that are included in the transition. If this group will include fixtures which are not in the transition, then some values will be distributed to them, and then there will be gaps in the timing, and the transition wouldn't look as smooth. Okay, this tutorial video has been long enough, so still if you have questions, you're welcome to write me by email, and that's it.